The Parent Advocacy Group is a joint project with Disability Rights South Carolina, ABLE South Carolina, Family Connection of South Carolina, the South Carolina Advisory Council for Educating Students with Disabilities, and the Office of Special Education Services at the South Carolina Department of Education. The following presentation was developed in collaboration with the Office of Special Education Services and Diversity, Inclusion, and Access for Multilingual Learner departments of the South Carolina Department of Education. Hello, my name is Sarah Garrett. I work for the Office of Special Education Services, and joining me here today is Zach Taylor, the team lead for the Diversity, Inclusion, and Access Division, as well as Susan Murphy and Elizabeth Supan from the Diversity, Inclusion, and Access for Multilingual Learner department.
The Office of Special Education Services, commonly referred to as OSIS, and the Diversity, Inclusion, and Access team under the Office of Federal and State Accountability, or OFSA, operate within the South Carolina Department of Education. Both OSIS and OFSA share the mission and vision of the South Carolina Department of Education by ensuring that all students with disabilities and multilingual learners receive a free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment to develop world-class knowledge and skills to meet the profile of the South Carolina graduate.
The Office of Special Education Services mission is: if the Office of Special Education Services, or commonly referred to as OSIS, provides consistent, collaborative, proactive direction and support focused in the areas of academics, social emotional learning, early childhood development, and post-secondary transition by using database decision-making, quality instruction, which is evidence-based practices, family and community engagement, and fidelity in implementation, then local education agencies and state-operated programs will have the infrastructure, capacity, and sustainability to provide students with disabilities equitable access and opportunity to meet the profile of the South Carolina graduate, world-class knowledge, world-class skills, and life and career characteristics. The priorities during the COVID-19 pandemic continues to be the health and safety, student needs, and communication. No rights or requirements under Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or the IDEA, have been waived. Regardless of instructional delivery model, whether it be virtual, hybrid, or face-to-face, a free, appropriate public education is required. The Office of Special Education Services pledges our continued support to communicate with districts and families as we work to navigate the changes brought about by the pandemic.
The Diversity, Inclusion, and Access, which we will refer to as DIA or DIA in this presentation, has recognized that multilingual learners bring diverse cultural identities and new perspectives to strengthen our classrooms and communities, will achieve the South Carolina College and Career Readiness Standards while navigating between native and instructional languages, and provide the global perspective that is needed of the South Carolina graduate and emphasize the advantages of bi or multilingualism to honor students' identities as strengths rather than deficits. The term multilingual learners, or MLs, embodies the shared core values of diversity and inclusion, which are integral parts of the profile of the South Carolina graduate. The Multilingual Education, or English to Speakers of Other Languages, ESOL program in South Carolina will continue to grow and reflect these values to increase multilingual learners' opportunities to meet the profile of the South Carolina graduate. The Office of Federal and State Accountability will take an asset-based approach by referring to English learners, ELs, as multilingual learners, MLs.
Who are multilingual learners? These are students whose first language is not English. Some multilingual learners might be newcomers, migrant, immigrant, or students with limited or interrupted formal education, or SLIFE students.
As a parent, family member, or guardian of school-aged children, you have certain rights, and these rights must not be affected by national origin, citizenship, or immigration status. Under federal law, all children, regardless of their citizenship or residency status, or the citizenship or residency status of their parent, family member, or guardian, are entitled to equal access to a free public education. Parents, family members, nor guardians of school-aged children can be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity. It is the responsibility of schools to ensure that all students, including multilingual learners, have access to a quality education that enables them to progress academically while acquiring English proficiency. The Office of Civil Rights, or OCR, requires school districts to take affirmative steps to ensure students are not excluded from the effective participation in school on the basis of their native or home language and their level of English language proficiency. The OCR also states that parents or guardians with limited English proficiency must receive school notices or other information in a language they can understand. School districts and the schools within the district must ensure that parents or guardians have a meaningful understanding of their child's education. This includes the use of qualified and competent interpreters and translators, or interpretation and translation services, in order to ensure that all school materials and communications are understood by the parent and/or guardian. In addition, multilingual students are not to be assigned inappropriately to special education classes because of their lower levels of English language proficiency. In the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or commonly referred to as IDEA, the local education agency or school must take whatever action is necessary to ensure that the parent or guardian understands the proceedings of the IEP team meetings, including arranging for an interpreter for the parents or guardians with deafness or whose native language is other than English. It is the guidance and expectation of South Carolina school districts to abide by these laws and rights for individuals.
The Office of English Language Acquisition is an agency under the United States Department of Education. They have developed a family toolkit. This toolkit offers parents and families suggestions when enrolling their child in school, including specific questions to ask school staff. The Family Toolkit can be downloaded in English, Arabic, Chinese, and Spanish. Some of what we cover in this presentation is included in this toolkit. The Office of English Language Acquisition states, and it is the expectation of districts in South Carolina to comply, that schools ask only for documentation that is allowable for enrolling a student to attend school. For example, school officials may not ask about a student's citizenship or immigration status to establish residency, nor may a school deny a homeless child, including an undocumented homeless child, because he or she cannot provide required documents to establish residency. On the other hand, proof of residency in the school district may be requested when a student registers in a school. These documents may include copies of utility bills, lease agreements, etc. The Dear Colleague Memorandum of 2015 mandates the removal of barriers for enrollment in public education. In South Carolina, we enroll students based on age and not prior grade placement. All multilingual learners must be placed age appropriately in all courses and grade levels. In high school, students are placed according to age and incoming transcripts. A student cannot be placed in a lower grade level or less challenging classes solely based on English proficiency. Schools and school districts can ask for immunization records and proof of age from a clinic or doctor. Check the school and district websites to learn about the documents required to enroll your child in school. Schools may not share information that may reveal a student's personal information unless permitted by law or if you give them written permission. Here are some suggested questions for parents to ask school staff when enrolling their child. How do I find out what school my child will attend? Who do I ask to provide me with an interpreter when I go to the school? How will transportation be provided for my child? Who is my child's guidance counselor? And what is this person's contact information? How can I expect the school and teacher to communicate with me in my language? Schools often send families important information by flyers, letters home, text messages, or email. If you request this information in a language other than English, ask how the school will notify you and receive the same information that is given to parents who are English speakers. Schools are required by law to provide meaningful communication with parents. This includes parents who may themselves have limited literate language in their first language, which would mean that verbal communication would be key for meaningful participation in their child's education. Most importantly, be sure that the school has the information that it needs in order to contact you. And make sure you understand all of the information you receive. Do not agree to or sign anything until you understand fully what is being asked of you. This includes fully understanding the enrollment for virtual, face-to-face, or hybrid models of instruction.
No one could have imagined or predicted we would be faced with COVID-19. The pandemic required school districts to think differently about enrolling students. The state of South Carolina and the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, provided guidance for establishing an environment for the health and well-being of students, educational personnel, and the community at large. Schools have been faced with the challenge of establishing a variety of instructional models in order to keep students healthy and safe. Those safety guidance has included distance between students, wearing masks, and other additional safety precautions. Schools offered 3 instructional delivery models during this time in order to accommodate these guidelines. The 3 instructional models are face-to-face, hybrid, and virtual. Keep in mind that school districts have established policies for these various instructional delivery models based on factors specific to their districts. There is going to be variability from district to district. With safety, health, and well-being in mind, schools have had to institute policies and procedures for the enrollment in these instructional models. In order to be fair and equitable, school districts are challenged to adhere to these policies. The face-to-face instructional delivery model is what we faced before the pandemic. The hybrid model is students going face-to-face for so many days a week and virtual so many days a week. The virtual instructional delivery model is a full-time virtual classroom. Some students have flourished in this model, and some have struggled. If you are concerned that your child will not be successful with learning virtually, parents can request IEP meetings to express concerns. Parents of multilingual learners can also contact their ESOL teacher or general education teacher. If your child is struggling in any of these instructional delivery models, maintain documentation of your child's progress so that you can share with the special education teacher or ESOL teacher or even the general education teacher. Districts cannot address what they don't know. Communication is key to student success. If you, as a parent, have questions about the different instructional models or questions navigating the district's website when enrolling your child, please contact your local district for assistance.
In order to assist multilingual learners with a disability or suspected disability with services, there are processes in place to help identify and provide services for those individual needs. First, let's talk about the Home Language Survey. It is in federal law that all parents or guardians are required to fill out a home language survey on their child's initial enrollment in South Carolina schools. This survey, in conjunction with an ELP, or English Language Proficiency Screener, informs the school whether your child is potentially eligible for ESOL, or English to Speakers of Other Languages services. These services may include a range of instructional models depending on the student's needs to support their language development. These services may include accommodations to access the curriculum. Although not encouraged, parents have the option to waive language services. Schools are required to annually assess the English language proficiency of all identified multilingual learners. Now let's discuss Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. IDEA requires that any child from birth to 21 must be referred to special education if a disability is suspected. This process is commonly referred to as child find. For early childhood, this takes place through BabyNet in South Carolina. For a school-aged child, OSIS recommends that if the parent makes a referral, that be made in writing and addressed to the school in which the student is enrolled. A request for evaluation for special education services can also be made by a teacher, social worker, or school. An evaluation cannot take place, however, without the parent's consent. The school has the right to refuse to evaluate a student, but must provide a written response outlining the reason the request was denied. Once the parent consents for an evaluation, the evaluations must be completed within 60 days. Since evaluations are individualized, the evaluations assessed may differ from student to student, but may include assessment of academic achievement, intellectual ability, social and emotional skills, speech and language skills, hearing, vision, and fine and gross motor skills. Another important component in evaluation is to ensure that assessment tools are not discriminatory on a racial or cultural basis. Evaluation must also be conducted in the child's typical, accustomed mode of communication, unless it is clearly not feasible to do so, and in a form that will yield accurate information about what the child knows and can do academically, developmentally, and functionally. If a multilingual learner is being evaluated, materials and procedures used to assess the child must be selected and administered to ensure that they measure the extent to which the child has a disability and needs special education, rather than measuring the child's English language skills. Furthermore, a student receiving ESOL services suspected of a disability must not be delayed or denied the evaluative process for special education. Likewise, students with special needs cannot be denied ESOL services. After the evaluations are complete, a team is assembled, including the parent, to discuss and develop a plan that best supports the child. This team meeting is called the IEP, or Individualized Education Program. The services discussed may include accommodations to access the curriculum. It is required by law, and it is the expectation of all districts to provide an interpreter for multilingual parents to all IEP meetings. We'll now talk about some of the questions that our parent advocacy groups have received. Question: how can I support my child with some of the websites schools use, such as ClassDojo or iRead? Answer: first, contact your child's teacher about your concerns. It is in the best interest of your child's teacher and school for your child to succeed. Many educational vendors, like ClassDojo and iRead, provide translations to help break down the language barrier between classroom and home. For example, ClassDojo Translate will translate your messages along with school story posts in the parent's ClassDojo account in the account settings. ClassDojo Translate offers over 30 language translations. iRead as well offers Spanish translations on their website. It is in the best interest for vendors to support learning for all students and be accessible to communicate with multilingual parents in assisting their child's education. We would encourage parents and guardians to visit the website of the program used by schools and teachers. Reach out to your child's teacher for assistance in locating vendor translations.
Many parents don't have a way to communicate with their child's teacher because of a language barrier. This is a good example of the guidance the Parent Advocacy Group advises when enrolling your child in a South Carolina school. Parents and guardians are encouraged to talk to the school family liaison, or teachers, or a principal about ways the school and teachers can best communicate with you. We understand that some parents do not have email accounts or internet access. This is where it would be imperative and important for parents to establish communication options with the school. Some options you may suggest the school to consider for establishing meaningful communication might be through text messages, voice or video messaging, or even social media. For example, the use of Facebook Messenger or an app called WhatsApp.
What should I do if printed materials come home to a family that are not translated in a language that the family can understand? It is the guidance and expectation of schools in South Carolina to follow OCR law and provide communication to parents or guardians in their native language in the same way as they would send home communication to English-speaking parents or guardians. Parents or guardians are encouraged to contact the school regarding translation of such material or information that is being sent home. There are language interpreting or translation services that schools can utilize when communicating with parents or guardians. Many schools utilize these language services for communicating in a variety of languages. We encourage schools and districts to use the services of language interpreters who have been trained in cultural competency, integrity of confidentiality, and who carry proficiency in both English and the language of the parent or guardian.
We want to leave you with some resources online. SCDE encourages you to visit the South Carolina Department of Education website. We offer a vast selection of language translations to help navigate the site. You may access this service of language translation for the website at the bottom of the web page as shown here. There is a drop-down arrow that, when clicked, opens up access to a multitude of languages.
With the language selection on the South Carolina Department of Education website, please utilize the available resources on the SCDE website. One resource we would recommend to assist parents with children's social and emotional well-being, especially during this unsettling time due to the pandemic, is the Social and Emotional Learning webpage. You may find this resource under the Office of Special Education Services, Social and Emotional Learning Supports for Students and Families. You may also follow the URL or access the website with the QR code on this slide. The Office of Special Education Services have also launched a web page devoted to tips for implementing the virtual and hybrid learning model. This website might be helpful for you to help your child navigate through the varying modes of instructional models. There are resources in our 4 areas of support: academic, early childhood, post-secondary, as well as social emotional learning.
For assistance in your child's school district regarding concerns or questions about multilingual learning services, you may contact the Title III Multilingual Education Coordinators. Likewise, for assistance in your child's special education services, you may contact the Special Education Director or Coordinator in your child's district. A list of coordinators for each district can be found on the South Carolina Department of Education website. As indicated, the Parent Advocacy Group is a collaborative partnership of caring organizations. The South Carolina Department of Education is a member and is committed to providing support for multilingual learners with disabilities and their families.
Family Connections of South Carolina is South Carolina's Parent Training and Information Center, or PTI, which is partially funded by the IDEA. Family Connections offers a variety of services, programs, and resources for families in the areas of healthcare, education, training, and advocacy.
Disability Rights South Carolina, also known as DRSC, works to protect and advance the legal, civil, and human rights for people with disabilities. It is the federally authorized and funded organization serving as the protection advocacy system, the P&A for South Carolina. DRSC is a private, nonprofit organization providing free services statewide.
ABLE South Carolina is a center for independent living. It is an organization not about helping people with disabilities, but built on the central concept of self-empowerment. It is a consumer-controlled, community-based, cross-disability nonprofit that provides an array of independent living services.
These members of the Parent Advocacy Group are here to assist you. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.